Let's follow up on your answer about DNA database. Did you find that helpful?
Oh, I found it extremely helpful. I found it empowering. I used a company called African Ancestry Incorporated out of Washington, D.C. with Dr. Rick Kittles as the co-founder, and he actually wrote the foreword to this book. So that's the company they use to trace Oprah Winfrey's and different celebrities, their DNA. They have a very huge African database where I think back in the early 90s where they went to Africa, spent a long time, and they collected thousands of DNA samples from various populations of West Africa where they know the ancestors of African Americans came from. Right. So with that, with those samples, they build a huge database. Right. And once you send in your sample to AfricanAncestry.com, they compare your DNA to their database to see if it's a match. Right. And my DNA was, my cousin's DNA, who I wanted to test for this book to prove where my ancestor had come from, or her family had come from. It was a 100% match to people in Senegal, the Mandinka people. So DNA is it's a new technology. It's very helpful. And I tell people who want to do DNA testing for family research purposes to combine genealogy research with DNA to help you get a better understanding of your family, and there are some aspects that you may not want to get tested, and having that prior knowledge, no, I don't want to take this particular DNA test, or I want to take this particular DNA test. So definitely merge genealogy research with DNA testing.
Okay. People out there in the audience today who are very inspired by your work and your experience, can you give them a couple ideas how to get started with this process?
Well, I know sometimes people are like, oh, I would like to write a book, but they get scared, they get intimidated. Don't. Just sit down, relax, think about what you want to write about, and get some ideas in your head, and then come up with a good outline of how you would like your book to be, how you would like the story to be told. Because I feel like an outline would organize yourself. It would kind of help kind of take away some of that intimidation, like to be able to see that, okay, I've sat down and I've generated a basic thought process, an organized thought or outline of how I want my book to go. And then just take it step at a time, just start writing, and once you do that, before you know it, you've written hundreds of pages, and you just keep going and write when you enthuse or when you feel like it. Don't force yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So how were you able to find? How do you get your work published? What are some of the steps that you can do to get your work out there, to get someone interested in publishing your work?
Well, like I said, develop a story. If you have an idea of what story you want to tell, and you can also develop an outline, you can pitch that outline to different publishers or literary agents, and just to see if they like it. You don't necessarily. I think a lot of people get confused that I have to write the book first and then go seek a publisher. No, that's not always the case. You can develop a well-defined outline of your book, and then pitch it to different publishers or literary agents just to see if someone is interested. Okay. So that's a good way to get started.
Okay. So do you have any future project in the pipeline right now?
Yes, I do. Okay. I am working on my second book, and it's called 150 Years Later. It's going to be released in August. So that book is also another story that I wanted to tell about one aspect of my family. My mother's paternal grandfather, he had been a slave, and his father was sold away. His mother, grandmother, everybody was taken away in South Carolina. And he never did know where they were. So when he gained his freedom, he decided to move to Mississippi. Right. After he was told, somebody told him that Mississippi was the land of milk and honey with fat pigs running around with apples in their mouths. Right. So he came to Mississippi, married, had a large family, But he was a man that loved to tell his children and grandchildren about his experiences. And a lot of that oral history I was able to capture from family members. So with that oral history and employing genealogy methods, I was able to find, I was able to put the pieces of his history together, find out where his father ended up, where his mother and grandmother ended up. And lo and behold, they were right there still in northern Mississippi, within 75 miles away from him.
Right.
He never did know it.
Right.
He never did know it because he was always passed down,
Right.
I don't know where they took my daddy, and I don't know where they took my other family members. So he had no idea. So I was like, this would be a great story to tell about how the family came together. Because once I found out where these other family members were taken, I found the living descendants, and we had a huge reunion in 2009, which was the 150th year anniversary of when that separation took place.
Right.
So I wanted to tell an uplifting story.
Okay. Were you able to use the library to help you with the research for this work and the future work?
Yes. Actually, I was writing this book when I was in grad school here at Clark Atlanta University, and I was finding out different aspects of, my ancestors and their lives and what, what life that they had to live during that time frame of, before the Civil War and after the Civil War. So I was able to come here and check out some texts that, talk about, African American history, slavery, the Civil War, just for me, myself, to get a better understanding of how my ancestors lived and to paint that picture in my book. Right. So most definitely, yes, I utilized this library a lot, checked out a lot of books, read a lot of books, specifically some books from our John Henry Clark Africana collection in the archives. Okay. He had some valuable books, related to Africa, related to African American history. Mm-hmm. Even when I determined where in Africa some of my ancestors came from, I was able to check out some books here and read more about it. So most definitely this library played a major part in this book. Even though it was written before I started writing it before I moved to Atlanta. But it just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time to complete it.
Okay, Melvin. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.